Welcome to Experimental, the science show where soldiers wee on their food, eyes explode, and ducks talk. Coming up, why drinking and mobile phones don't mix in Finland. How Boeing is going to have to rely on paper plane fanatics to design their next airliner. And how this man can open a van with his head from 80 metres. But first, Experimental has come to NATIC Massachusetts to meet a man who thinks that this strange collection of stuff is the greatest food on Earth. He's one of the US Army's top food scientists, and he's kind of proud of what he does, as you're about to see.
Hi, I'm Jerry Dash, the Director of the Department of Defense Combat Feeding System. What that fancy title means is that I'm actually the Chief Cook and Bottle Washer for the United States Department of Defense. At the moment, we have about 1.2 million warfighters who consume and use the products we have. They all carry weapons, so it's in our best interest not to antagonize them. In today's battlefield, we have really three combat ration platforms. One is the individual combat ration platform. I'm sure a lot of you folks are familiar with the Meal Ready to Eat, or MRE. Not too long ago, that stood for Meals Rejected by Everybody. We have now taken that MRE to Meals Relished by Everyone. What you see here is a ration that we entitled Unitized Group Ration Express. Basically, it's a kitchen in a carton. It requires no fuel, no cook, and no equipment. All you do is pull a tab. There's an exothermic reaction that generates a lot of heat, and you have a piping hot meal for 18 soldiers anywhere in the battlefield, no matter how remote they are. We also have a special purpose ration, which we currently field for our reconnaissance pilots, very high altitude missions, and these particular products are used through the mask feeding through a pressurized helmet.
Apart from being high-tech and possibly low cuisine, there is one thing that all these foods have in common. They're all heavy, and most of their weight comes from this stuff: water. In fact, the water content of a standard issue 3-meal ration weighs about the same as an M16 rifle. Which is why Jerry and his friends have come up with this, Ration X. Freeze-dried food which you can rehydrate with this. Yes, nasty, dirty, brackish water. The kind more deadly than enemy fire. Unfortunately, this grunt wimped out when it came to the eating bit, but Jerry has faith in his science, so let's see him try.
And we would take some water that does not look particularly appealing, and we would fill the pouch up to about here. That's basically what the product would look like. And what I'd like to do is open this up and dump it in this bowl. Okay, we're going to put this down. And as we say in the Department of Defense here in the Combat Feeding Program in NATIC, the proof is in the pudding. Delicious. Heaven.
Okay, he didn't drop dead, but why? It's all to do with a membrane that separates the food from the dirty water. It's full of holes less than 2 nanometers wide, much smaller than the smallest bacteria and viruses, but larger than a water molecule. Which means water can get through, but the nasties cannot. That's all very well when the grunts are fighting near water. But what if they're out in the desert? Yep, you've guessed it. If you get really, really desperate, you can occasionally use your own personal source of water to rehydrate your meal. But we don't suggest you make a habit of it. Still to come on Experimental, funny walks in Finland, the ultimate paper plane in Nottingham, and why chewing gum blocks up the toilets. But first to the test department for some heady science. Our test department team are always thinking of new and exciting ways to make life easier for themselves, or ideally, effort-free. And Horace here was struck the other day by a crucial and important laziness issue. How can you lock your car when you're too far away to use the bleeper thing? You can't imagine what he tried rather than walking the 50 feet back to the car. But eventually he came up with putting the bleepy thing against his head. What? It can't be true. Well, let's see. At 45 feet away, we can see the efficiency of the bleepy thing has dropped right off. We call this the no bleep zone. But using his bleep through the head system, we can push the boundaries of the no bleep zone right back to an amazing 25 meters. Why? Well, it seems to have to do with radio waves. The bleeper sends out a stream of them, and Horace thinks that if he can increase the size of the aerial, he can increase the bleeper's range. His theory is that putting the transmitter onto his head results in an aerial exactly 1 Horace bigger. He's also tried to improve his radio reception by sticking its aerial in his mouth. He swears this works, but we remain suspicious of his theories. Later on Experimental, the test department will be firing eyeballs. But first, let's head north to sunny Finland. Welcome to Finland and the northern town of
Oulu.
Thank you. In the summer, this place is a beach resort, but in winter it gets so cold, the sea freezes. You'd have to be mad to be outside on a day like this. But when we heard that somebody here had invented a device that was set to eradicate mobile phone theft forever, and that they were using vodka in their research, well, we were here in a shot. Strictly in the name of science, of course. Professor Heikki Elisto is an expert in identification, but his latest invention doesn't use traditional biometrics like fingerprints or iris scans. Instead, it measures gait, the way that we walk.
Theft of mobile phones is a big problem. For example, in UK, 5% of all thefts are mobile phone related.
And that's what Heikki is trying to combat by using a new kind of biometrics, measuring the way people walk. The idea is a simple one. Your phone sits in your pocket or bag as normal, but it constantly monitors your movements as you go about your everyday life. It learns how you move. So if someone steals your phone, the phone will know it's not you and will lock up.
We grabbed the idea and we started working on a very small-scale test or experiment to see if it really works.
Heikki's latest prototype makes use of a tiny motion sensor. Once fitted inside a mobile phone body, it measures movement in 3 directions. Side to side, that's the yellow line, up and down, the red line, and forward and back, the green line. And it actually works, as Heidi here will demonstrate. The invention is designed to make a detailed record of every stride, bob and sway of the hips as we make our way around the world. This profile of Heidi's walking style is as individual to her as her voice.
Imagine that I'm a robber, I have stolen Heidi's phone, I have it here, and now I'm going to walk with this phone.
As soon as he starts walking, the phone detects that Heikki's gait is different from Heidi's, and within a few paces, it switches off. The reason that everyone's walk is so individual is down to the large number of factors that shape our movements. For a start, the size and shape of our skeletons, what sex we are, the size and makeup of our muscles, and even psychology comes into play. It seems that happy people really do walk with a spring in their step. Heike's invention is still at the prototype stage, although it's being extensively tested and the results are looking promising. They have found that under extreme conditions, like walking on ice, the phone does tend to think you're a robber, a bit of a drawback, especially if you live here. So the phone now features a PIN code that you can input to unlock the phone and reassure it that it really is you. Something else that completely confuses the phone is alcohol. It seems that after a few drinks, we don't just forget ourselves, we forget how to walk like ourselves too. And when you're especially tired and emotional, you might even forget the PIN code. Quite a severe design fault, you must admit.
Currently, the system knows only one walking style per person, but you could teach the system to learn your walking style when you are, when you have had a couple of drinks.
This is just the beginning for Heike and his team. What started out as an unusual idea has grown into something that they really believe will cut crime.
Yeah, we are very excited about this. It's not only mobile phones we have been talking, but it could be laptops, any gadget you are carrying with you.
So, can anything portable be protected by this system? Perhaps not. Still to come on Experimental, we have Dr. Quack and her microphone, and Professor Macintosh and his paper planes. But before all that, a cautionary tale from the test department. We've all heard the old wives' tale. If you sneeze with your eyes open, they'll pop out. But is there any truth in it? In the test department, our demonstrator is trying to make himself sneeze using pollen and pepper. Sneezing can also be caused by a bright light and even orgasms, but we're not going to go there. Which brings us back to that main question. What would happen if you didn't close your eyes when you sneezed? Time for a little experiment. Unfortunately, we can't do the obvious thing and pin his eyes open. Health and safety, apparently. So we'll do the next best thing. We'll use a fake head and ping pong balls for the eyes. The idea is simple. Push the ping pong balls into the pipes, which will act as eye sockets. Then use a foot pump to recreate the pressures that build up inside your nose and throat when you sneeze. So let's see what happens. One problem though. Very luckily, there are no tubes connecting the back of your eye sockets to your nose and throat. So no matter how hard you sneeze, your eyeballs can never do this. In a moment, we head to Nottingham to learn how to design an airliner. But before we do, some reassuring advice for anyone actually thinking of flying in one. Welcome to the world's worst flying nightmare. You're at 9,000 meters, and suddenly, some nutter decides to open the door. Within a second, you're sucked out into oblivion. Could this really happen? The answer is no. Let's go back to the ground, and our nutter is waiting by the closed door. The pressure inside and outside the plane is roughly the same. But as the plane rises, the pressure outside drops. At 9,000 meters, the higher pressure inside the cabin seals the door into the fuselage, wedging it with a force equivalent to 5,000 kilograms. Which means there's no way any nutter could ever pull it open. Happy flying. Now it's time for some aeronautical engineering. Don't tell this lot they're making paper planes. To them, this is advanced, applied, paper-formed aeronautics. What you're looking at are the aeronautical engineers of the future, a group of students who have just entered a paper plane making competition. Well, we all have to start somewhere. They learnt their crimping skills at the University of Leeds under the watchful eye of Andrew McIntosh, Professor of Thermodynamics and Combustion Theory. That's burning stuff to you lot.
What they did was make their paper aeroplanes with some of the aeronautical principles which there are in aeroplane making. This little paper aeroplane is actually flying by exactly the same principles as your big jumbo jets crossing the Atlantic.
But will advanced engineering knowledge, when applied to the humble paper plane, get you something better than your average classroom dart? Visually, it seems we're onto a winner here. You get models like the Spruce Moose, the Hornet, and the Mighty Avenger, winner of the competition's prize for the best design. And there's also this one, which looks a bit like the sort of thing I made in class. But why do planes or paper darts fly in the first place? First up, there's the wings. On fancy planes, they're called aerofoils, but you may have noticed that paper planes usually have flat wings. They fly in a much simpler manner. The angle of the flat wing deflects the air downwards. This means that the wing and anything attached to it, like a plane for instance, is pushed upwards. Action and reaction, simple but effective. Want to know what it feels like? Stick your hand out of a car window like this. But real planes, and some of the more complex designs flown in the competition, seem to have all sorts of things dangling off their wings.
Ailerons and other devices on aeroplanes are very simple things really to understand.
Most wings have flaps, which increase the lift when the aircraft is at low speed. There are other devices called ailerons, which help turn the airplane. And on some aircraft, there are additional winglets at the tips, which improve the overall efficiency of the wing.
This picture shows hooded cranes in flight, and they've got little winglets which reduce drag at the side. These actually are great designs, which of course the great designer has already put there in nature, and we can do well to actually copy those designs.
But does it all work? Just because it's got a complex design, does it mean it'll fly better? Let's see how the Avenger, with its flaps and winglets, does. A staggering 2.09 seconds. Next, it's the Hornet. Going for maximum climb and recording a gravity-defying 3.5 seconds. Finally, the Spruce Moose. Nothing fancy here, just a common classroom dart and... Whoa, an amazing 5.3 seconds, which is only 22 seconds off the world record, but proof that when it comes to making paper planes, a simple design wins out every time.
Unless somebody really knows what they're doing with these flaps and ailerons, they're going to very quickly move into regions where, rather than being a help, the flaps and the ailerons and all the other things, the winglets, are probably going to reduce the amount of forward speed. And it's the forward speed that is vital to keep the plane going for as long as possible. So for competitions like the one we had, it's hardly surprising that it was the simple ones which actually were the ones which were more successful.
I came up with this design based on something which I got taught in my secondary school quite a few years back. And it was the best design that we've found so far. We tried a lot, but disrupt.
Well, there you have it. A functional, simple design, well built, can still beat a complex design. Before we talk to some ducks in Italian, let's go to the test department for a spot of mastication. This scientist is performing a very important experiment here in our test lab. She's trying to find out the truth behind the old wives' tale that chewing gum takes 7 years to be digested. But luckily, she won't be doing the digestion herself. She's going to create her own stomach right here in the lab. So what's in there that does our digesting for us? Well, first up, there are enzymes like pepsin. Then there's hydrochloric acid, which just helps things along. So let's see what these two chemicals do to a little sponge cake. In 3 hours, it's all gone to mush. And now for the main event, chewing gum. Sounds promising. After 3 hours, when the fairy cake was mush, not a lot seems to have happened. And what about in 24 hours? Well, still not a lot. And this is hardly surprising, because the main ingredients of modern gums are likely to be wonderfully indigestible substances, such as polyethylene and polyvinyl acetate. And let's face it, we weren't designed to digest plastics. So what does happen to the gum? Well, 24 hours after being swallowed, it's usually gone on a little trip. Finally, on experimental, meet Dr. Victoria de Reicher, a linguist from Middlesex University in London. Her interest in language is rivalled only by an obsession with ducks. It's a combination that's sure to ruffle a few feathers. You see, Victoria has a theory that ducks have regional accents just like us.
Humans have made an assumption that ducks quack in the same way all over the world. And I wanted to challenge that.
Victoria, or Dr. Quack to her friends, started by asking children across the globe to impersonate the sound of a duck. She found that an English child would say
Quack, quack.
a Vietnamese child
Cab, cab.
and an Italian child.
Quack, quack.
Most linguists put this down to language differences, but Dr. Quack thought that maybe the ducks themselves had quacksents. On her trusty scooter, Dr. Quack hunted down 2 geographically distinct duck populations for her study, the first of which was in the heart of London.
I picked ducks in East London because I'm a Londoner myself, and I feel that it's a really interesting accent. It's one you can very easily recognise, and I wanted to see whether or not that might be paralleled in the animal world.
Dr. Quack's streetwise city ducks were here at Mudchute City Farm in the East End of London. Ducks aren't keen on staying still at the best of times, and sure enough, as soon as Dr. Quack brings out her microphone, it causes as much panic in the farmyard as a jar of hoisin sauce and a Chinese cookbook. With the city ducks recording, Dr. Quack headed out of London to the rural village of Shatterling in Kent. But would the laid-back country ducks prove as unwilling to participate as their city counterparts? Ah, such a peaceful life. When the feathers settled, Victoria took time to analyse her recordings, and the results were surprising.
So this is the rural duck. And this one is the urban quacking. The London ducks are incredibly raucous. They're very loud, they're very fast. They need to make each other heard, I think, or they need to be heard.
Amongst each other, and also over the everyday sounds of the city, like planes, trains, traffic, and the hordes of people visiting the city farm.
The rural ducks are much slower. They're very relaxed. They use a lot of lower register sounds so that it doesn't seem half so competitive. I think perhaps that's also due to the fact that the sound around them operates very differently.
So it seems that Victoria's quackscent theory might be right. The differences in the way humans imitate ducks could well be down to the ducks themselves. Of course, regardless of accents, will we ever really know what ducks are saying to each other? Welcome to Experimental, the science show that makes budgies glow, walks on water, and gets itself arrested. Later on, we'll be finding out why this man has spent his life trying to record a duck's echo.
That's complete twaddle.
Recreating one of the greatest moments in science history,
Mary had a little lamb.
and having a drink with this couple in Boston and Taiwan. But first, let's fluoresce. Experimental is in Brisbane, Australia, in search of budgies that glow, and the scientist who's trying to find out why by smearing them in sunblock. But first, we're off to the disco. The ultraviolet lights are blazing, and anyone who really wants to get noticed strutting their stuff has washed their clothes in biological washing powder. Under UV light, they're blinding. Of course, it doesn't necessarily make you any more attractive. It's so much easier being a budgie. They don't even have to dance to find a mate. They just sit there and glow.
All right, can you get that one, Tom?
Neurobiologist Justin Marshall of the University of Queensland has discovered that budgies use the natural fluorescence of their feathers to find a mate. And now he's caught some, he's going to prove it by smearing one with sunblock. Fluorescence appears when a material absorbs ultraviolet light and emits visible light. Detergent manufacturers use the trick to make clothes look brilliantly clean. They add fluorescent brightness to soap powder that absorbs UV light and emits blue light, making old, yellowing clothes shine again. In the disco, under intense UV lights, those clothes glow extremely brightly. Luckily for budgies, they don't have to wash their clothes to get noticed. Birds are remarkably well equipped to see fluorescence under normal conditions. Their eyes are sensitive to ultraviolet. They have a much wider visual range than humans, and they can see colours around them that we can't even imagine. The fluorescence of their feathers is only visible to us under special ultraviolet lights, but to budgies, it's visible all the time. Scientists have known for some time that budgies fluoresce, but they didn't know why.
The real clue as to what the fluorescence in the bird was for came from looking at where the fluorescence was on the bird. And we noticed that the fluorescent feathers were in parts that the birds were showing to each other.
If the birds were displaying to each other, then the chances were it had something to do with sex and mate selection.
Animals that fluoresce are slightly unusual in that there are many animals that are colourful. Fluorescent animals want to be extra colourful and extra gorgeous, if you like, towards their mates. So fluorescence, we believe, is something to do with sexual communication.
Experiment time, then. Is a glowing budgie more attractive to the opposite sex? Take one female budgie, willing to be impressed by a couple of pretty boys. She is placed in a choice chamber, a highly desirable bachelor girl pad equipped with transparent walls through which she can ogle the guys. Take two near-identical male budgies, each with fluorescent yellow plumage on their cheeks and crowns. One male is left as he is, the other is smeared with sunblock so that the female can't see him glow.
Putting sunblock on the budgies is no problem. They preen it off within a couple of days, and in fact we have to replace it all the time. So it doesn't harm the birds at all. All it does is to dampen out that fluorescence in the feathers.
If fluorescence is important, then the female budgie should prefer to sit opposite the brightest male, rather than hang out with the sunblock bird. And she does.
Budgies choose fluorescing partners much more frequently, significantly more frequently than non-fluorescing partners. And this indicates that it is something to do with sexual communication.
Hang on a second, though. Maybe it's got nothing to do with sex. Maybe Budgies just like hanging out with other bright birds.
Females didn't really care whether their next-door neighbour females were fluorescent or not, and males didn't really care about other males fluorescing or not. They only really cared when it was the opposite sex. So males had to have fluorescent females to sit with, and females had to have fluorescent males to sit with.
So why does being brighter make you a better mate?
Fluorescence might be quite hard to do. It may be quite a hard signal to make. So it indicates that the bird is trying hard and being successful in life. So if you're a bright fluorescent bird, you're successful, you're getting a lot of food, you're a worthy mate.
Here's a warning. A glowing budgie is a strong, virile, attractive budgie that's irresistible to the opposite sex. The same doesn't necessarily apply to humans. In a moment on Experimental, we'll be arrested using the latest technology. But before we go behind bars, let's walk on water with the test department. James and Anu are having one of those days in the test department. They've got the white coats, but they've got nothing to test. Which is why they're desperately looking through scientific papers for some inspiration. Things are not looking good until suddenly James finds a real gem. A Leonardo da Vinci drawing of shoes that enable man to walk on water. I say, what a great idea. But can this be done? There's only one way to find out. Head to the pool and don some shoes. Predictable. What we need is shoes that exploit the Archimedes principle.
Ah, that's the one they name after me. It say to James he can walk on the water if he can find a way to make himself weigh less than the water he gonna push out of the bath.
Given that James weighs 72 kilos, he's going to need a pair of shoes that will displace more than 72 kilos of water. Let's see how these do. Splashy, but not quite big enough. Now we're talking. How about these? Fantastic. But perhaps this experiment explains why Leonardo's walking on water idea never really caught on. Coming up on Experimental, we risk our fingers in an attempt to track down that rarest of things, a duck's echo. We'll be drinking from the cup of love and visiting the test department's recording studio. But before we do all that, let's go in search of a gadget that James Bond would have killed for. Every now and again, the test department takes things a little too far, like blowing up balloons, or attempting to smell the armpits of Chinese women. But on a recent trip to Dorset in the southeast of England, things got a bit out of hand. It all started when their latest blind driving experiment went wrong in a fairly spectacular way. One siren and a policeman later, science lost two great minds to the long arm of the law.
Right, well, I've had a report of somebody acting very suspicious here. And what I'm going to need to do is to fill out a form to search your car.
Still mustn't grumble. As a result, Experimental stumbled on a pretty nifty piece of kit. A pen, straight out of James Bond. This revved up biro not only writes on the paper, but at almost the same time, it's uploading Mr. Plod's squiggles to the main computer back at the station. So, as the cuffs snap shut on our two former test department demonstrators, their charge sheet is already being prepared down at the Plod shop. It's the brainchild of Petter Eriksson.
What we're aiming for really here is an extension of that technology. We want to keep all that's good about pen and paper and just make it a little bit better in the sense that it also captures what you're writing and drawing and moves it into the digital world.
It works like this. Next to an ordinary nib, there is a tiny digital camera, capable of capturing over 100 frames per second. But the camera is not interested in the plod squiggles. It's filming tiny dots on the paper and working out where the nib is in relation to them. It's that data that's sent to a microprocessor, then transmitted back to the station, where another computer takes the data and, using the dots, not only recreates the plod squiggle, but manages to put that information onto the correct form. As a result, there is no time wasted in getting our test department testers locked up where they belong. This gizmo isn't only helping out the law, it can also be used as an instant translation device. Simply write in your own language, Swedish Petter, being cocky, chooses English, and then, with a simple tap, it will transmit the data to your mobile phone, which will then read out what you've written in the language of your choice, German or now Japanese. You can also be all romantic, sending love squiggles to your lover's mobile, anywhere in the world. All that wonderful technology our hapless testers will never get to play with.
Don't try this at home.
In a moment, we search out the mystery of a duck's echo and go drinking around the world. But first, let's make history with the test department. They're into self-sufficiency in the test department. They might have access to some pretty sexy hi-fi, but when it comes to recording music, they like to do it themselves. What Horace and Heidi are wondering is, can they make a talking machine, the original recording device, out of some old drain pipe and a bit of aluminium foil? Of course they can. They've got white coats. All they have to do is bodge the pipe so it can rotate on this spool thing. Cover it with silver foil, attach a needle to a speaker cone affair, and prepare to shout into it. And because we have a sense of history, they're going to say the same words uttered by Thomas Edison when he invented what he called the phonograph.
Mary had a little lamb. Her fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, her lamb was sure to go.
This primitive phonograph works because sound, including nursery rhymes, vibrate as they travel through the air. When the rhyme hits the speaker, it vibrates, vibrating the needle and scratching a ziggy line on the tin foil. You reset the whole thing, the needle vibrates in the groove, babbling the speaker, and you hear pretty much what you've just recorded. So let's listen back.
Mary had a little lamb, her fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went,
Speech, but not exactly high fidelity.
had a little lamb, her fleece was white as snow.
Still to come on experimental internet drinking. So much better than the chat room. And the test department's attempt to make rubber eggs.
Hello.
But first, our sound recordist, Bruce, has a strange obsession with ducks. It's not their swimming or waddling that he likes. No, being a sound recordist, it's their quacks that get him going. Or rather, it's trying to record a duck's echo.
Yeah, I've been hunting the duck for quite some time now, and I still can't find the echo of the duck. It doesn't exist, I'm sure.
Now, this may be news for you, but Bruce is not alone. It's a commonly held belief that a duck's quack does not echo. Don't believe us? Well, let's ask a few farming types.
The duck's call is the only one that doesn't echo.
No, I don't think you can hear a duck's echo.
A duck's quack definitely doesn't echo.
Well, those testimonials might do for some people, but not for experimental. So we headed to the labs of Trevor Cox, Professor of Acoustics at the University of Salford, to ask him his opinion about non-echoing ducks.
That's complete twaddle.
Twaddle it might be, but his department was aware of the claims.
We only became aware of when we got contacted by people asking us, was this true or was it not true? And of course, when people contacted, we said, of course the quack will echo, go away.
However, just because Professor Cox thought that the duck echo claims were twaddle, science can only back him up if there is true experimental evidence to prove it. So we headed off to a local farm to procure him a duck. They didn't have a duck dog, so they lent us their sheepdog, which was next to useless. But Trevor did eventually get his quacker, and we could get down to the serious business of examining its echo. But first, what do you need for an echo? Number one, a good sound source. Bagpipes should do it, then a good hard surface at least 17 metres away, like those cliffs. The melodious sound from the bagpipes leaves our player at approximately 1,225 kilometres per hour. Oh, lovely. It then hits the cliff and bounces back to the player approximately 0.1 of a second later, reducing their melody to a total cacophony. To examine the duck echo, or lack of it, we're first going to record it in an anechoic chamber, a room full of super soft cones, which means there is no chance of an echo. See? We'll then cross-reference this with recordings taken in here.
This is a reverberation room where sound echoes around as sound echoes in a cathedral. If a duck's quack's going to echo, it's going to echo in here.
So, let's start with our reference quack.
Come on, Daisy, quack. Come on.
Well done, Daisy. Now, for a truly epoch-making moment. Proof, or otherwise, that ducks' quacks echo. Silence, please.
Come on, Daisy. Out you come. Out you come.
Oh.
Out you come.
Sadly, it took some time before Daisy was prepared to reveal all to science. And who can blame her? This one has been keeping us humans guessing for centuries. But, with a stiff drink for fortitude, she was finally ready to quack. So, do our ears deceive us? Was that an echo or not?
Well, you can see here, this is what the waveforms looks like for a duck in an environment with no reflections, an anechoic chamber. And here's what it sounds like. So it sounds a bit like a duck. I suppose it's not very surprising. And these are the results if we take it into a big room, the reverberation chamber, where everything echoes around. You can clearly hear all the echoes happening. So this is pretty strong evidence that a duck's quack does indeed echo, if you're in the right conditions.
So why then did the myth about the non-echoability of a duck's quack arise? Here, sadly, we're back on speculative grounds.
Well, there's a few sort of ideas, one of which is that when you hear a duck quack, it kind of sometimes goes quack, quack, quack. So maybe the repeated quacking of a duck kind of masks the sound of the echoes coming in. The other possibility is ducks don't tend to be near large surfaces, which can give you reflections. You don't tend to go and hear ducks near large cliffs, which is, if you think about the conditions where you hear echoes, it's up on mountainsides near big cliffs, or it's in urban streets where you've got very large walls, and you don't tend to meet ducks in those conditions. So it might just be there's no reflecting surfaces around where people are normally listening to ducks.
So Bruce's long search to record the echo that isn't there looks like it's over.
It's a dead duck as far as I'm concerned.
Still to come on Experimental, how high-tech lonely hearts get together. But before that, let's head to the test department for some eggs. There's only so many interesting things you can do with eggs once you've poached them, fried them, boiled them, and scrambled them. Your options are well, limited. But fear not. The test department has an extraordinary experiment that will leave you eggs. Do I really have to read this?
Get on with it.
Right, anyway, here's how to get an egg in a bottle without breaking it. I said without breaking it. First, take a bowl of eggs, and to check that they're not cooked, break one onto a suitable surface. Next, pour a bottle of vinegar into a bowl, and then put an egg into it. That should do it. Now all you have to do is wait around 48 hours whilst the vinegar does its magic. The acid in the vinegar soon dissolves the shell, which is made mainly of calcium carbonate. What's left is the membrane that surrounds the white and yolk, which makes the egg feel more like a rubber ball. But just how rubbery is it? Now for the fun bit. Light a couple of matches and chuck them in a bottle. Then sit the naked egg on the neck, and as if by magic, once the match has burnt, the pressure inside the bottle drops, and the egg is pushed into the bottle. Bingo! There you have it. An egg in a bottle. Now for the burning question. What do you do with an egg in a bottle? Well, to prove it wasn't cooked, you smash it up, pour it into a pan, and eat it, of course. And finally, drinking with a difference. Spring on the campus of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And suddenly, all the students are putting down their books and rediscovering their bodies, or more correctly, someone else's body. Yes, love is in the air once more. But there's always the hapless foreign student drinking alone, far away from his loved one. Or is he? Well, no. This is Jackie Lee, and he's on a high-tech date of his own making. And he's not drinking alone. Thousands of miles away in Taiwan, his girlfriend, Han, is staring lovingly into her glass as they drink in virtual reality land. Jackie is a student at the MIT's Media Labs, where they think of kinky new ways to make the mundane interesting.
So, the Lover's Cup, they are like interface for drinking as a new communication. We don't have to call or email somebody. We can have more impressive ways, like using cups as a communication interface.
This humble little glass could be the mobile phone of the future. It's embedded with sensors and has a radio transmitter in its base. Like all lovers, it comes in pairs. And once the two cups set up a relationship, they're capable of interacting with each other right across the world. If you're in Cambridge, Massachusetts, but your lover's in Taiwan, you can still drink together. She takes a drink, and your glass lights up. Your lips touch the rim of your glass, and thousands of miles away, her glass glows with your caress. Shake your cup, and hers vibrates, which perhaps might lead her to think of other things. The lights and sensors have been around for years. What's new is the fact that the cups are connected to the wireless internet, each with their own individual IP address, which means that signals can bounce across space and find their partner wherever they are in the world. There's only one thing that Jackie has left out, perhaps deliberately. There's nothing to indicate how drunk you're getting. So as you pass out, your lover can sip a lemonade in blissful ignorance.